Hi everyone, I'm JD from Willow Journals. Welcome back to my channel. So here is my next Booktube video where I'll share about this next book that I read called Truths from an Unreliable Witness by Fiona O'Loughlin. Now she is an Australian comedian, so we know her pretty well here in Australia, and I read it as an audiobook. So I got it for free from Audible. And why I read it? Well, because I know her in Australia. I watched her growing up on TV when she did comedy festival shows, Oxfam and all that kind of thing. And I remember liking her comedy. Then I saw her on TV on the show more recently. What's it called? The Jungle Show. What's that show? I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And she actually won that series, and because Australia got to know her and loved her, and just, yeah, she's very funny. And I thought, when I saw that I had a free book that I could get from Audible, in the past when I have read audiobooks, I found that my favorite ones were the ones that were memoirs read by the author, because I love hearing them tell their story in their own voice. So I've read Ando's The Happiest Refugee, which I really, really enjoyed listening to him read his story. Anna Kendrick, Ellen DeGeneres, Drew Barrymore. I think those are the only ones I've read so far through audiobook, but really wonderful. So I knew when I had a free book that I wanted to get something that was a memoir. And often when it's by a comedian, I love that because it's engaging, it's funny, and yeah. So I had read a sample of this on Amazon before, and I just loved how real and raw and honest it was. So I went ahead and got it from Audible. And yeah, so that's why I read it. And then basically this book, it tells her story. And it's a story of, in this book, the focus is on her addiction to alcohol. And yeah, so it was kind of like two books in one. On one hand, you are reading a memoir, a person's life story, but on the other hand, I wasn't realizing I was going to get into this whole world of what addiction is like. So it was quite illuminating for me, quite sort of like reading a non-fiction book about what it's like for someone to go through alcohol addiction. And yeah, I found it to be honest and funny, heartbreaking, but also hopeful and helpful for me to see what that world is like. And yeah, one of the biggest things I got from it, a takeaway thought, was matches up with one of my key thoughts anyway. I remember having this thought as a kid, just from seeing life happen. Give people grace, because you just don't know what they're going through. For example, case in point, this lady was performing on stage at comedy shows, she was on TV, but in this book she shares the behind the scenes look of what was actually happening. You know, she's on the stage, she's on TV, everything looks great on the outside, but she's struggling with addiction on the inside, and she's, behind the doors, and she's struggling with insecurities on the inside. So we might look at someone and think, oh, look at them, like maybe they're rich and famous, and we're like, they've made it. Or bring it close to home, people in our own lives, we might just look at their lives and be like, wow, look at them, they're amazing, they've got it all together, they must never struggle. No, every single person struggles. They've got these doubts, self-doubts, insecurities. Some of us have severe self-loathing, but we don't show it on the outside. You go through life and you do your normal things, and just why give people grace, because I just go through default mode now. Everyone is struggling. Every person I see on the street, who I meet, my friends, my family, strangers, everyone is struggling. Okay? It's just generally it might not be a huge struggle with like alcohol addiction or something, but everyone has something in the back of their mind that they're doubting this, they're struggling with this thing, they've got this thing that they're judging themselves for, they're worried about this thing that they're going to screw up, they're worried about that thing. Everyone has some little struggle. So give people a lot of grace. We're all just human, bumbling through life, right? And then, there was this key moment that I always come back to just remind myself of that. And like now it becomes like a little picture I can always imagine now to give people grace. So she was, she won I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here on TV, and yet in the middle of the night she would go and she would down hand sanitizer because that's all she could get there for some substance that she could use. And none of us saw that on TV. That was all when everyone else was asleep and it's dark, and she would go and do that. So I just picture that. Someone could look like they're doing well in life, but they're drinking hand sanitizer when you're not looking. That's how I see every person. Not that we're all literally drinking hand sanitizer, but every one of us has go-to things, has struggles, and has ways to deal with those struggles that we don't see, that other people don't see, whatever that is. And I mean, it might not necessarily be like that drastic or that damaging. That we could turn to things that are actually helpful as well. But the point is that all of us turn to something because in the first place we have a reason to turn to something because of that struggle. So another idea that I really liked, that was new to me, this one was new to me, and she went through like the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and all that kind of thing, and the lies that addiction tells you. And one of them is that you're alone in it, that no one understands. And another phrase for that is terminal uniqueness. You feel like it's fatally threatening to your life that you are the only one struggling with this big secret of, your drug or alcohol addiction or whatever addiction you might have or whatever struggle you might have. One of the reasons, often the biggest reason why we keep it closed is because, and don't show it and don't talk about it, is because we think, oh, I'm the only one who struggles with this, I'm a freak, I'm a weirdo, I can't tell anyone, everyone will judge me, everyone will hate me, I'll lose everything, my friends, everyone's just going to drop me and, hate you, and because you hate yourself. And this is faulty thinking. Everyone struggles. Every single person struggles. So I learned this with my depression and anxiety journey. For example, that was one of my struggles. I'd never told anyone. I'm like, because I thought, I'm going through this all alone. No one else knows what I'm feeling like. No one knows or understands how dark this feels and these really dark thoughts that I'm having and just how much I hated myself. And I can't tell anyone about that because I just can't, because I felt like I had terminal uniqueness. So we've got to banish that lie. It's just a really boring struggle. Everyone struggles. You're not unique from it. You're not special because of it. Because some of us can use it like we make it our identity. It's like, look at me, I struggle with this thing, and that becomes your identity. So you actually cling to it because it's something familiar, and it becomes like your crutch. It becomes, in this twisted way, the thing that you don't like becomes the thing that you hang on to because it becomes who you are. And how did I get onto that track? Anyway, but there's nothing special about it. That's not your claim to what makes you who you are. That's not your claim to how people are going to love you, but is by holding on to this identity of, woe is me, I'm the only one who struggles with this specific thing. No. It's very, very boring, very, very mundane, because all of us struggle. And when we can just realize that and just be like, hey, you struggle, I struggle, it's all good. It's all fine. And we suffer needlessly if we have this view that we have terminal uniqueness and that we stay there, we get trapped there. If we think we're alone there, if we think we're ashamed and going to be judged for it, we're just going to stay there. So banish this thought that it's terminal and terminally unique. It's not. It's very boring, very mundane. Everyone has it. And it's very normal that we all struggle. You could think you're doing the worst of the worst. You could think your addiction is the lowest of the low. No, other people have been there. Everyone has had these really dark thoughts. I mean, like, there's a scale, of course, and the specifics might be different, but we all can connect with that idea of struggles and thinking that we're the worst of the worst and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, with the depression and anxiety journey, as soon as I started sharing with people, that's when I learned, oh my gosh, this is not unique at all. Like, every second person I talked to was like, me too, me too, me too. I'm like, oh, okay then, what the heck was I thinking that it was just me? So I know it's scary and it takes, courage to talk about it, but I just want to encourage you, you're not alone in your struggles, in your darkness, in your hard times, in your self-hatred, in your dark thoughts. Whatever you're going through, you're not a bad person, you're just human. You're not a bad person, and people, well, I won't. I'm not going to turn my back on you or reject you for these bad things. You could have murdered someone, and I'm still going to find grace for you. I like to think that. And I know not everyone has that same idea, but we're all just human, and I want to see the humanity in you. And we all have cruel moments. We all have dark occasions where we do things and think things that we're not proud of. Hey, I'm with you. I haven't murdered anyone, but I'm with you in that I'm human with you, and I struggle, and I have done things that I've regretted, and I can connect with that part. I can't connect with the fact that you've murdered someone, for example, but I can connect with your humanity, and that's why I'm not going to reject you, because at the end of the day, we're both just human. And I'm trying to think like of the worst kind of thing. If there's no room for grace for people, then there's no room for people being able to just talk openly. I want to make room for people to forgiveness, to not suffer. At the end of the day, I don't want anyone to suffer. No suffering. If I can help make the world just a little place with a little bit less suffering, I'm going to do what I can for that. And I want to let you know out there, if you're suffering because you're holding on to this idea that you're all alone and everyone's going to judge you because you're so bad, I believe there's other people out there like me who will tell you that you are just so loved. I mean, yes, I will say it. This is not a popular view, I know, but if you've murdered someone, you're still loved. You're still loved. I mean, your action, of course, is terrible, absolutely terrible, not good. we don't want that, but you as a human being, every person, despite their actions, despite their thoughts, you are so loved just as you, just as you, just as you, just as you, just as you. And no action can take that away, how loved you are. So think of the worst thoughts you could ever have. Think of the worst act you could ever do, and you are still loved right. And the moment you're doing that act, that's a crazy thought, isn't it? Crazy, radical love. God's love is radical like that. That he loves us in the very act of our worst moment. He still loves us. And crazy to accept that, such humility to be able to accept that love, because when we are in that moment, we're like, oh, I hate myself, I just want to not be here, so much pain and suffering and isolation and aloneness and shame and just attacking yourself and judging yourself. God's not judging you, he's not attacking you, he's not punishing you, he loves you even at your worst moment. Oh, that's radical, right? What does that mean? How could that change things? And that's something I had to learn, that even in my worst, absolute worst moments, God loves me in those moments. So I have to love myself in those moments, which means I don't wallow in self-pity. I don't beat myself up. Yes, I try my best every day to do better and to live better and to, not do those cruel things, whatever, cruel thoughts or whatever, including to myself. My cruel thoughts are mostly to myself, tearing myself to shreds. So every day, just try to do better, to love God, love myself, love others, and to know that nothing disqualifies you from that. You could have murdered someone. You can still tomorrow love someone. I mean, today you could still love someone. This very second, no matter what you've done in the past, no matter the worst of the worst that you've done, today you can do something. This very moment you can bring good into the world. Every one of us can do that. No matter how bad we feel about ourselves, no matter what we've done, this moment right here, we can do something that brings good in the world. Because you, I believe, are a good thing in this world. You were created in the image of God for good, to do good. You are amazing, and nothing disqualifies us from that. Not even the worst of 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 the worst. And I mean, most of you watching probably have never done anything on that scale, right? So you're okay. You're okay. We're all okay. If we can just get out of that shame spiral, if we can just forgive ourselves, if we can know we are so loved, we can bring good into this world. And I dedicate my life to bringing good into this world. And you can too. The past doesn't change that. Your addiction doesn't change that. Your depression and anxiety doesn't change that. Your wrong things that you have done doesn't change that. I don't know, we've gone on a huge tangent here, but look at where this book took me. Books can do that. Books can open up thoughts. Books can open up ideas. Books are amazing. Interesting book. And worth a read, even if it just gave me that insight into what it was like for someone to struggle with alcohol addiction, because it can be applied to anything, to just any struggle. And so more grace for people. If anything, this book just gives me more grace for people, more grace and compassion for people who have addictions, more grace and compassion for people who make wrong choices, more grace and compassion for people who do things that are despicable, more grace and more compassion to you, because most of the time anyway it's out of they've had a horrible life, they've had something horrible happen to them, and they're suffering and they are struggling so much that it comes out in some really horrible behaviors. The point here is less suffering, more love, more grace, more compassion, less suffering. I think that's what's come out of this. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this really random thoughts on this book, and yes, I know not everyone will agree with my stance on life, on humanity, but I hope we can all just give people a bit more grace and compassion, including ourselves, and that we can help bring good things into the world and less suffering in the world. Okay, hope you're all doing really, really well, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! Thank you so much to my beautiful patrons who supported me in October and allowed me to create and share videos for another month. If you'd like to become a patron in November and support what I do here, that would be so appreciated. I'll leave the link below to my Patreon in the description box below, where you get access to extra videos, first preference for my journals, behind the scenes updates, and if you're a Ruby tier or high, you get every single digital kit from my Etsy, plus an extra one every month. And there are also some mail tiers. You get something sent to you in the mail.